right, we're in order. Now, guess the disposition of the minutes. We wanna make a motion?
I move to accept the minutes of the August meeting as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to announcements and public comments.
I have an announcement.
Okay.
Just a heads up that Sierra will be away on leave for the next several board meetings. And Krista Farrell will be stepping in as board secretary until Sierra's return. So starting next month, Krista will be the official board note taker until Sierra's back.
Any online comments? Public comments?
If anyone online would like to make public comment, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. No public comment.
Okay. Moving on to our continuing education.
Yeah, so I have asked Barry Trott, Adult Services Consultant from the Library of Virginia, in today. Some of you might have heard me talk about a survey that the State Library was doing. There's two separate surveys, one of library staff, one of library directors, to get a sense of how public libraries in Virginia are using AI currently. And I thought this went well with a request that I got from Peter to present a continuing ed about AI and the future of AI in public libraries. But this is meant to be an opening salvo, so to speak, there, where here's what the current state is. And then moving forward, I'll arrange for some more CVs about what JMRL's response is, and then potentially what other libraries are, what the future of that would look like. I will mention before Barry gets started that JMRL's currently has a working group that is meeting regularly and talking about the use of AI in public libraries, but so far there has been no, here's procedure that we're going to use, or here's policy we would like the board to consider. So far, it's kind of like taking stock of what's available and how it's being currently used. So having said that, I am going to turn this over to Barry once we share his presentation. Barry?
Thank you. Thank you all for having me here. This is, as David said, this is not going to contain really any recommendations, here's what you should be doing, here's what anybody should be doing with AI. The field is changing extremely rapidly, as you all are, I have no doubt aware. And this is, I think, one of the challenges for libraries is to not feel like you're just constantly catching up all the time, to have that time to sit down and think about this. So I'm glad to see that the JMRL has a group of staff working on that. I think that's something that's a good direction. And, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. As David said, in August, the first 2 weeks of August, we did two surveys because, well, let me backtrack. A year ago, in September of 24, we did a training series on getting up to speed with generative AI for library staff. That's part of the work that we do. It's a lot of training, extremely well attended. We had 4 programs in that series that looked at what is it, how do you use it ethically, what are some of the security concerns, and then we did one on programming with AI based around some things that we had actually done at LVA. The response to that was very positive, and then continue to get questions about it, right, from directors, from library staff around the state, from boards. And we put together a directors discussion group for AI. It was open, anybody could come. We had regular meetings, sort of initially just to say, well, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you doing? Kind of thing. That went well for a while, sort of tapered off a little bit as people got a little more comfortable with AI and comfortable thinking about it themselves. But I wanted to get a sense of where we are in the state of the AI in public libraries, hence the survey. So I'm going to run through the 2 surveys. As David said, one was for library directors specifically, And that asked a few more questions. The one for library staff was a little bit more general, just trying to assess what they knew, what they thought, and what they felt they needed to know. So I'm going to run the reports have not come out yet because I'm still writing them. This was an opportunity, as I told David, to force me to actually sit down and get the data together in a way that I could then write the report. So the reports will come out hopefully this week. So we did 2 surveys. The surveys took place the first 2 weeks of August. The director survey was sent to 95 library directors. The staff survey went out to about 1,000 public library staff who are on various mailing lists that we have. So let's look at the director survey first. We did not ask for the name of the individual library. I didn't want any director to feel like, oh, you know now what we're doing, or, you know, well, we're not doing anything, so we feel bad about that. So we asked them what region they're from. The regions don't mean anything to you all. There is a map that I could show, and I just didn't have time to grab the map and put it in here. The wild turkeys, we're not really sure where that name came from, but that's the Southwest Virginia libraries, South 81 South, East and West of 81. Salad, Southside area libraries, that's across the bottom of Virginia, stopping when you get to the Tidewater area. So everybody from sort of Franklin, city of Franklin, going west till you hit the wild turkeys. Tall Dock is Tidewater area, and Three Rivers is the northern neck. So those are the east side of Virginia. Called Capital Area Libraries is all the libraries around Richmond in the center, and Region 5 is Northern Virginia. They don't have a cool name for some reason, but that's the Northern Virginia libraries. And you all are in what's called Mountain 6. That's the libraries that are in the valley, I guess from Rockbridge Regional up all the way to, you get out of Virginia, right up to Handley up in Winchester. So you all are in the Mountain 6 region. You will note you were one of the higher response rates here, which I was delighted. We had 58 responses out of 95 public libraries, so 61% response rate. Most of the responses came from Tidewater, Southwest Virginia, and the Shenandoah Valley. Half of the libraries that responded indicated they're currently using some sort of AI. For the directors, half of the directors indicated they are using AI in their libraries for something, you know, and we'll talk about what that is next. The current AI uses, as you can see here, other was the most popular use, and followed quickly by policy development. What we noticed in the survey results is that policy development, reference and reader's advisory, strategic planning, finance, cataloging, collection development, all of those are getting used. In the other category, general writing and marketing were the 2 highest uses. I think what this tells us is that mostly what people are using AI for right now is writing stuff. And that's reinforced when you look at the tools that they're using. ChatGPT, off the charts, Gemini, and Copilot, which is Microsoft's AI tool. Those are mostly sort of large language model chatbots that people put in a prompt and get text back that they can then, or they put their text in and ask to edit it. That's mostly what AI is being used for right now in public libraries, I think, certainly by the directors, is being used to polish writing, to create, you know, bullet points, to help assess things, that sort of work. Over half the libraries don't have any plans to implement AI in the next foreseeable future. I thought that was interesting. So we had 29 libraries are using AI, about half of them. Of the half that are not using AI, over half of them are not planning on doing anything with AI. Could be for a variety of reasons we didn't inquire. Could be time, could be just director doesn't feel like AI has anything to offer right now. Could be financial, of that nature. But libraries in the more rural parts of the state were more likely to indicate that they are not planning on using or doing anything with AI in the near future. This was something I was very interested in personally, was if they're using AI, what is that based on? Are they, you know, how are they making sure they're using it safely? How are libraries making sure it's being used ethically? And all of that kind of thing, sort of data protection, all of those sorts of things, because libraries have a great deal of data about our users, right? You can't just plug your circulation data into AI, you know, throw it into ChatGPT and ask it to start doing analysis unless you created some safeguards for that data. So you have to be careful. So only 3 libraries out of the 29 that responded said that they had a policy, actually, or 3 out of the 58 that responded said they have a policy right now. Several of them said they are planning on developing a policy, and an equal number said they follow their locality policy. That is not unusual. You all are a regional system with a governing board. Other library systems that are part of a city or county government usually have to follow the city or county government's policies on things like AI. So they're not in the position to develop their own AI policy. This does, I think, give us some ideas about where we might want to go. This was an attempt to assay what they wanted to use AI for. And you can see it's sort of all over the board, streamlining things, improving productivity, enhancing access, building services. Some of the other things were, things like cataloging, those sort of things, maybe not as important or seen as important, though, as David and I were talking, cataloging may actually be one area where AI takes over public libraries very fast because it's a rote process in some ways. So it does offer some opportunities there. But in some of the other comments that folks made, they said to help my writing, help diversify my writing style, also creating images. And there was one comment I just felt there were some negative comments about AI in the survey. And one of them was, my main goal with AI is to kill it and use the wasted energy and resources on something of value. As we get to the staff survey, you will see that is not an uncommon thought. Oops, look back in here. There we go. We did ask if they felt there were barriers to AI implementation, because if there were, I wanted to know, were those barriers that were self-created? Were they financial barriers? Were they other things? The biggest barrier that the libraries pointed out was lack of staff skills. Again, that gives us at Library of Virginia, I think, some great direction about what we can do. But also concerns about accuracy of results, and then concerns about privacy and security and ethical use in general. So those are the 4 big pieces: staff skills, ethics, access, accuracy, and safety, data security, cybersecurity. But the majority of libraries reported that they don't see any barriers to implementing AI in their institutions, the directors. This was a question because I was curious what the director's perception of the impact AI was going to have, so that we could compare it to what staff's perception, in a sense, or perceptions about AI are. The impact that directors thought was going to be biggest was the need for retraining and skill building. Again, helpful, very helpful for us at Library of Virginia in terms of what we're doing. There were some interesting other responses, though, including, I worry that we may eventually lose staff who become proficient in AI to better paying careers. Well, I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation, right? As people develop skills, it's challenging in the library world, I think, to continue paying them what they can get paid in the technology world. Technology skills, pretty good. So another impact was a false sense of the ability to save money by replacing staff functions with AI. So they were concerned that libraries were going to be laying off staff using AI to replace them, when that's not really necessarily the best thing for the library. And navigating misinformation, that was another big concern there. And about their impact on staff, right? If staff is out on the public service desk dealing with misinformation all the time, that's going to have a negative impact on your staff and on staff morale and on their comfort level at the library and staff retention. So we did ask them what feelings have your staff shared with you about AI. Most everybody said they're excited, anxious, or indifferent, but mostly excited and anxious together. That seems to have been the most common, and that's true of both staff and the perception for staff, but also true of what the directors sort of felt themselves. Though, as you see, the directors feel that they're a little more excited about AI than staff is. And again, we'll see that when we get to the staff survey. Just real quickly, not unexpectedly, this survey of directors yielded a wide range of opinions. I mean, we have 58 responses. You're going to get 58 very different opinions about AI. But there's clearly a certain amount of excitement among the directors in terms of the possibilities that AI might offer if it can be used safely, especially in terms of the environmental impact of it is another big area that a lot of the directors mentioned. One of the big barriers to implementation is that idea of staff not knowing what AI is or how to use it, so offers opportunities here. I think another training areas, I don't think I showed this, I quickly skipped over. We did ask them whether they were using the paid versions of the AI tools or the free versions. Almost all of them were using the free versions. That raises another set of security concerns. The paid versions of the tools have more robust security protocols. And so if they're using the free versions, there needs to be, I think, a certain amount of education amongst the directors, not just the staff, on what that means when you're using a free version. It also means you're usually using an older data set than the more up-to-date ones you're paying for. So the information you're getting may not be the most valuable to you. That was the director survey. The staff survey, we started off just asking them how familiar they were with AI. As you can see, most of them are feel like they're familiar with it. They've heard about it. Maybe they've used an AI tool. Very few of them have indicated they were not familiar. We did have 300 responses out of the 1,000 surveys we sent out. So 331, 97% of those were from public libraries, though we do have academic and school librarians on our mailing list. Almost everybody is public library staff. And 74% indicated they were either somewhat familiar or very familiar with AI tools. So, we're starting with a certain base level of knowledge, but as you'll see, I think there's definitely some areas to grow in. We asked them what most interested them about AI in library settings, or conversely, it's sort of the same question, just worded differently, because I wanted to see if it pushed the answers in any way. But what uses of AI? They're definitely mostly interested in using it to improve users' experience with the library, right? As librarians, that's what we do. We want people to use the library better, and we want the library to provide those people with a better experience. So I think for those people who felt excited about the potential of AI, that was the area where they mostly wanted to explore. But, the other ones are up there too. Obviously, data analysis, automating routine tasks, which would hopefully free them up perhaps to do other things. Data analytics was pretty high on the list when they thought that, when you asked them what area they thought was most interesting. I find that fascinating because most librarians are not that interested in data analytics. I am interested in that sort of thing, but very few people in libraries seem to seek out data and data analysis. So I thought that was intriguing. And that may be a reflection of their feeling that AI can do a better job than they can in terms of analyzing that. It can help them get better at it. We asked what AI tools they're currently using. It was almost exactly the same as the directors. Large language model, chatbots that are mostly processing text. Staff did indicate a fairly heavy amount of use of AI to create images for marketing and promotional things. That was the other piece they're using, especially within tools like Canva, which has its own set of AI tools in there. So they are using that for images, but mostly for writing. This was where the things get sort of interesting. Most staff feel a high level of anxiety about AI. 28% report feeling anxious, 20% report a mixture of all of those things. And there were a lot of other responses here. The appendix of the report has, counting in my head, hold on a second, 20 plus pages of comments from staff on several of these questions. Almost invariably, they are expressing concerns, not excitement. And those concerns were not around job displacement, which I thought was interesting. I think for a lot of people, that's the first thing you think about. Oh, is AI going to take my job over? Librarians don't seem to be as worried that their job is going to be taken over by AI, but they're much more worried about the privacy and security and the ethical issues and bias. those are the areas that seemed to resonate most with them in terms of what is making them anxious about AI. And also in the other category, the environmental concerns were repeated over and over and over and over and over again. Lots of concern from staff about the environmental impact of AI on not just globally, but on their individual communities in terms of data centers, in terms of water use, in terms of electricity, all of those things. So very interesting. We did ask them what they needed to be trained in. I need to know this so I can help develop trainings. And mostly it's about safety and security and ethical concerns. Just to, that, again, for me, that's very helpful to know that these are the things that they are looking for. So what do we see out of that discussion? Library staff are nowhere near as excited about AI as directors might be. Not all directors, but as many directors are. They have strong concerns, and that creates potentially a roadblock for implementing AI in an institution, right? If the vast majority of the staff has strong reservations about it, that's going to potentially create a situation where you have to lead properly. You have to introduce it in a way that is not going to be seen as threatening to them or threatening to their community, threatening to the kind of values that they bring. Over and over again in the comments, people brought up the values of librarianship and how AI does not align with the values that we have as librarians in terms of the way we provide service, in terms of the commitment we have to providing service to everybody, all of those things, right? So those are I see those as potential barriers for public libraries, not just public libraries, any kind of institution, right, that is implementing AI where staff have those kind of strong feelings. So just something you have to keep in mind. Do we have any solutions for that? No, we have no, there are no solutions that Library of Virginia can offer for that, because I'm not really sure there are solutions right now in general. But lots of skepticism and concern about the integration of AI into library services. I'm just looking at my notes. Environmental and ethical issues as big pieces of why libraries should not be investing time and energy into AI applications. I don't know whether to be heartened or disheartened by the number of people who said that libraries should just block AI wherever they can, because we can't do that, and that's not an option. There are public computers here. If somebody gets on Google and clicks the Google AI button, they're using AI. You can't really do anything about that. So sometimes I feel like library staff, the survey was showing that people maybe had a little bit of a skewed perception of what libraries can do vis-a-vis the bigger public culture in terms of shaping the discussion. That being said, many of them also felt libraries have an ethical obligation, responsibility to talk with users about AI. So even the ones who are skeptical of AI and concerned about it felt it was important to know about it so that they could clearly present the pros and the cons when someone comes to the public service desk. Again, a great opportunity or area for training. They were also they were concerned that the misinformation piece was going to really have an impact on their work, on the quality of their work. So that was another area. But some of them said, that there were areas of the library that perhaps could benefit from AI. And so there was a certain level of excitement, but being able to talk about its strengths and weaknesses, I think, was one of the ones that I took away from that, thinking, yes, that's a good thing. Knowing when AI is appropriate to use, because there are times where it is and times where it isn't. I think that's really important. Knowing what it can and can't do, that's another area where staff needs to understand what are the limitations on AI. We hear right now, the way things are presented right now often is there are no limitations on AI. AI can do everything, right? But no, it's a good tool for certain things, and it's a less good tool for other things. Where do you draw that line, I think, is the challenging issue. staff need to understand what the tools are and how do you use those different tools. What's the difference between a paid version of ChatGPT and the free version of ChatGPT and so on. I think as AI continues to expand in the workplace as well as in public consciousness, that libraries have an opportunity, like we have with any new technological advancement, to assist our users in better understanding how and when to use it appropriately. So I guess for me, that's what the role of libraries should be, is helping people better understand things. That's what we do. That's what we do well. That's our job, is helping people understand things. The concerns, the ethical, environmental, societal concerns have to be taken into account, though. So what does that mean for the work that I and the folks in library development? Library development, if you know the Library of Virginia, you may not know library development because we're a really teeny little division, and we have nothing to do with the cool collections at the Library of Virginia and the archives, all that stuff. Our work is solely to support public libraries. So it's a 6-person team, and our work is just to help the 95 public library systems in the state do what they do better. We don't oversee them. Have no authority over them. We distribute state aid funds, but that's really the only piece we have in terms of you have to follow certain rules to get state aid. Other than that, we exist just to be the librarians, in a sense, for the public libraries of the state of Virginia. So what does this mean for us? We need to continue to provide guidance on developments relating to AI to library directors. We do that all the time. We're sort of that piece to help directors who have lots of other jobs to do than just worry about AI keep up with what's going on. So we try and give information out. Developing training for staff, exploring options for providing secure and affordable AI tools for libraries. This is something I was talking about with our risk management and compliance officer at the Library of Virginia. We were actually had some big ideas about grants to try and get a tool that libraries could use to work with a university or something of that nature to develop a sort of a walled garden tool that public libraries could use safely to test AI out. And then, of course, the whole situation with IMLS happened in the spring and grant money dried up pretty much. So right now that project is sort of on hold, though we're still interested in exploring it. And then the last piece is, I think that's important, is to work with libraries as they try to develop policies and procedures around AI. So we can show, what are other people talking about? What are some policies that are being developed, not just in the state, but around the country in public libraries or in municipal governments that are helping shape how AI gets used. So that was a really, really quick tour of the survey, the 2 surveys. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. So I didn't notice much or anything about library vendors in there. And I'm sort of thinking that that's probably one of the main ways that AI will find its way into the library is through the catalogs and the various, tool vendors and so forth.
One of my roles is I manage the statewide database project called Find It Virginia, which provides a core set of digital resources to all the public libraries of the state. In that role, I work a lot with the vendors, and I've been talking particularly to EBSCO, Gale to some extent, the big database vendors, about what AI is meaning for them. So they are starting to incorporate AI into their database tools in different ways. Some of them are doing with some natural language searching where you can turn it on or off. Some of them are doing things where it will, you search, pick your topic, climate change, right? You get 10,000 articles, and it will do some summaries, to maybe group things in a different way. So definitely the vendors are aware of it. I would say concerned about it to some extent as well, but also interested in embracing it in an appropriate way. So that's what I guess what I'm seeing with the vendors from what, the discussions I've had with them. It's a great question.
And I guess the vendors should be concerned about the resistance to AI from staff.
It depends on how obvious it is in the tool, right? I mean, I think if it's just underlaying something and it doesn't say, click here to use AI to do it, people aren't going to notice it as much, is that ethical?
Right.
Because we're telling people, if you use AI, you should cite that you used AI in creating this document, right? So yeah, definitely. Great question.
I have several questions, and I also want to make sure everyone gets, hopefully they'll be interesting, but if it starts to, the interest level tails off, then the president can ask me to take it offline or whatever. But, so you mentioned a lot of concern about risks of safety, privacy, security, and bias. And can you maybe just to illustrate a specific example of a couple of those, like what's a scenario, a situation where using AI has created a safety risk or
Where it has.
where it could.
Sure. I mean, I would say.
Try to get more concrete about
Yeah, so you have, Jefferson Madison has in your, who's your ILS student?
Sierra.
In your Sierra system, your catalog system, right? Lots of patron data, knows what, more or less what you've checked out and when you checked it out, and that can be tied to genres of the book. There's all sorts of ways to cross tab cool stuff. You can do a lot of that thing. You could grab, a big data file and drop it in ChatGPT and say, analyze this, tell me what the most popular genres are, right? If you did that, you're also putting your patron data into ChatGPT, right? So where it becomes part of the learning, possibly. I mean, there are ways to not do it that way. But I don't know how sophisticated people are right now in the library world. Some are, but in terms of thinking about that, how to use it safely. So I guess does that answer your question?
Yeah, but let me,
Yeah.
in a constructive way, kind of poke at parts of
Yeah.
that. So it seems to me you could do an export where if in your example, you could eliminate
You could
the PII
anonymize.
columns and only have the frequency of checkouts of various stuff. Would that be safe then or would that also be a safe? What would be a safe?
I want to discuss that with somebody who knows more than I do at this point, just partly because it depends, again, for me, it would depend, say, are you putting that data out there where it can be used to train the model? Is the model locked down to just you? Is somebody else going to have access? So for me, there's a lot of things around that, but yes, you can anonymize data for sure.
And so similarly, though, we run our whole operation, as I understand it, on Google Workspace, which is Google, and why are there different considerations about sharing this stuff within Google Workspace or operating on these documents versus sort of a Gemini type of thing? David has something.
We have some reasonable assurances because of the like transactional nature of our Google. It's not just putting stuff into google.com. We have bought and paid for this separate workspace, which comes with assurances that data does not leave that workspace.
Right.
So I know Barry and I were talking earlier about, I know a lot of public schools use Google because there's a free tool, Google for our educators, that they can use. So a lot of public schools' use of AI is focused solely on Gemini, where they've been told by Google, like, we're only going to use your data within this limited data set. It's not going to go out to the outside.
So we could sign up for a similar add-on if we wanted.
That's that for me, that's when I say the walled garden approach, that's the approach. I think that is obviously much safer if you are keeping it on your machine or on.
I guess I'm just pointing out that's not specific to what I'm not understanding or hearing. That's not specific to AI. So if you just said if we put our stuff in Google Cloud, then it would be a problem. But if we kept it in our paid walled garden, it would be cool. I also think I heard if we put our stuff in Google Gemini unpaid cloud, that's not cool. But if we kept it in the walled garden, it's cool. So to me, the difference is there with the walled garden rather than the specific technology AI versus other sort of data and IT capabilities.
I wouldn't disagree that the security concerns with AI are not significantly different in some ways than the security concerns in general. But the way people are approaching AI is not understanding that, the security concern.
I think my response was just going to be that what I saw from Barry here was a matter of perception, is what staff and library directors' perception of it is. So you might have hit on like, oh, here are some safeguards that could be in place, but like that's not the perception that library staff have. And this didn't include the public, but if you were to have a wider range, I think you would probably find as wide a range of responses about perception.
That's a great question.
And I think I just really just have 2 or 3 more. You said the most important or a big takeaway I heard was there are library values and AI is in some way misaligned with those library values.
I would say that to what David said, that's a library staff perception.
Okay, but what is the perception? What is the library value and in what way is AI? AI is a broad, so we're
Yeah,
saying
generative.
we're saying generative AI. In what way is that misaligned or in conflict with what? I'm just asking me a little more specific. Can you say the library value use case where
You
using
have to
generative?
dig into when they were specifically hitting on that, because
Yeah.
I mean, and as I said, there's 10 pages or 20 pages of comments that
Yeah.
I was drawing some of that from. Trying to think. Most of it was around the ethical use, so the idea of, especially around sort of copyright, obviously one thing, so training large language models on works that some folks in lawsuits would argue are stolen, especially artists. That, interestingly, in the library staff one, that came up as much for images as it did for the language piece. The training models on an artist's work is unethical. And again,
So to
library.
use that product, the product of that technology.
Exactly, using that. So I think that's the approach they're taking. The environmental piece was also the bit of the big
Yeah.
one, I think.
All right. You didn't want, so this seemed to focus on using AI by staff and directors for operations.
Yeah.
Efficiency and better results and so forth. To me, there's a when you say AI and libraries, there's a different concept which we've touched on in our conversation with our collections manager. But the concept of it, there's going to be increasingly the options for materials that you can add to your catalog are going to be increased. So first of all, right now, anything that's new, somebody has used AI in some fashion, almost anything to review or help or suggest or whatever. But increasingly, there's going to be more and more AI authorship, and those works are going to get better and better. And could restate sort of, I think, where we landed in some of our conversations, but I'm curious if that's something that you've started discussing with libraries, or if there's some thoughts around.
In the broader library world, certainly there has been
Yeah.
some very big concerns about some of the, particularly Hoopla. I don't know if, are you familiar with, do you have Hoopla? You don't have Hoopla. Hoopla is like Overdrive, right? Hoopla is a vendor of ebooks, e-audiobooks, streaming video, and music, basically. The way Hoopla is different from Overdrive, and that Overdrive, the library selects titles from a catalog, right? Just like the library has always said, we want this book, we're not going to get a copy of that book, right? Hoopla presents it, it's a pay-per-use model. So, the library pays $1.99 for every use, or $2.99 or $3.99, whatever the thing is. Hoopla just presents the user with the entire catalog, right? So you see all hundreds of thousands of things that are in the Hoopla catalog. Hoopla got a lot of pushback because there was a huge amount of AI created content in there that libraries felt they didn't want to offer to their users, because it hadn't gone through any of the sort of standard vetting processes that presumably a book that's published by a publisher would go through, right? Editing, some level of editing, some level of review, those kind of things. So there was some pushback on Hoopla for that they're sort of flooding the market in a sense, right? Sort of what you were just saying,
Well,
right?
someone can write 10,000 books in the time it takes.
Exactly.
Somebody to write
That we've just,
a chapter.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so that is a concern. I think, again, libraries are looking at that. How do libraries deal with that? Libraries don't have a huge amount of control over this, unfortunately, in some ways. But the pushback that Hoopla got did cause at least discussions and some, I think, review of the way they were approaching AI content. I'd have to dig more deeply into the specific articles. I can send you some things, David, if you want.
And not to rehash, Mike, but you did allude to, I think the discussion that this board heard was about the Meredith's plan, the procedural collection management document that goes along with the collection management policy. And it was written in such a way that we would apply the criteria that we use for selection against the material, regardless of the authorship. So we kind of left it open so that moving forward in that world, we would look at the merits of the title, regardless of.
That approach makes sense to me, as we discussed, but I want to get Barry's take from other.
Yeah. I think that is a sensible approach, right? There's good books and there's bad books. It doesn't necessarily reflect on who created them.
Yeah.
We get both.
There's
All libraries.
ones that people have demand for and ones that don't.
Yeah.
That's a 4 square matrix, not a two square.
Right.
Okay, great. And I guess the difference is in your Hoopla example, there's no library collection curator. Because
Exactly.
you're offering all those to the
Right.
end user and they don't have a way of, they're using their own process to decide what they're interested in. Okay, last question.
Yeah.
Not related to your specific topic today, but could you briefly just outline your role as a library consultant? And because I've talked to the public library consultant, which I think is
Reagan is my colleague.
yeah. So I talked to her predecessor, I think, a couple of times.
Oh.
So can you just, for everyone here, can you outline who some of these folks are
Sure.
and what they can offer us as trustees? And David, please chime in terms of how you think we would best interact with some of those resources, if it would go through you, or we could reach out directly, or but just sort of
Sure.
while we have a representative here, take that
So
opportunity.
library development, the chief of library development position is currently open. In fact, it closed on Friday. So that position is not filled. We have an interim chief. So when we are fully staffed, we have a chief of library development, sort of oversees the 5 consultants. We have adult services consultant, a youth services consultant, continuing education consultant, the public library consultant, who Michael mentioned, and a data consultant is her title. Adult services consultant, my work focuses primarily on providing the statewide database collections. We do offer some 26 small public libraries. We actually provide website hosting and support for them for their website because they don't have the staff capacity or financial capacity to do that. And then the consulting work is what I'm doing right now. Just going out and talking, doing training, talking to staff, talking to boards, a little bit of talking to the public, but very, very minimal direct public contact. But focusing on work with anybody from late teens on. Youth services consultant pretty much does exactly the same kind of thing I do, with the focus on anybody from late teens the other direction down. The CE consultant coordinates continuing education, both in person and virtual, that we do, not all of it.
And that's mostly for staff.
This is all for library staff, yes. So our work is focused on supporting library staff, library directors, library boards, and friends groups. The public library consultant works with boards, trustees, boards of trustees, friends groups, foundations, and directors primarily. Reagan, my colleague there, will often do board trainings on things for new board members. What does it mean to be part of a board? She just completed a handbook for friends groups. We have a handbook for governing boards, a handbook for advisory boards. So we help guide. We don't tell people what to do. We feel very much that local control of the public library is the best thing. We don't want to be in Richmond trying to say all the public libraries of Virginia should be this way, because Virginia is a hugely diverse state. You all are a hugely diverse regional system, let alone, the rest of the state, right? You're dealing with, cities, rural counties, all that sort of thing. And then the data consultant, her work primarily involves making sure that we get the data we're supposed to get by code, the Code of Virginia, that then releases state aid, and she does all the work on calculating through a very arcane formula that's in the Code of Virginia, if you'd like to look it up, about how much state aid comes to each library. That has to do with population served, the amount of money your jurisdiction gives you or doesn't give you, the square mileage of the area you serve. All of those things get calculated in. The General Assembly assigned state aid. They got close to 100% funding this year, not quite as close as they've been in a long time. We hope that next year they'll give us 100%. Then that gets sent out to the public libraries as long as they have met the qualifications that are in the code. So
is it fair generally to characterize you as sort of a clearinghouse maybe for what's going on elsewhere in the state and some best practices?
We certainly serve that purpose.
Yeah.
It really depends on the library system, the director, how much they want to take advantage of what we do, right? So We do a lot of work, keeping people informed about things. We have, I put out a monthly newsletter for adult services staff. Services is the same, that gives that, there's a trustees and foundation newsletter that goes out monthly, that one of my other colleagues does, you can sign up for. So we're pushing out constantly information to the directors, we have a director's email list, we are in regular contact with them.
Yeah, and Reagan, who is the public library consultant, has done a tremendous job over the last 5 years of collecting a bunch of resources, including policies from every public library across the state on specific topics that they can find that our policy committee uses pretty regularly now. It used to be I would put out a call to 95 other librarians saying, what's your policy on dogs in the library? But now there's a warehouse there that she's keeping. Training has been the biggest thing that the Library of Virginia does for JMRL. Barry's coming back to all staff training day in a few weeks to talk to our staff specifically about AI, and not just the results of this survey, but some of those things that he hit on in there. They come to the directors meeting that I attend. Barry mentioned that we're in the Mountain 6 region. We also go to the capital area library meetings because of Louisa, which is in that area. So I meet with them quarterly. And then they offer training to library directors specifically for new directors. And then also there's a once a year training that happens right around, it's coming up next month. I'll go to Richmond for a day and hear about the latest and greatest. I would say though, excuse me, Barry, in terms of communication, like it's fine for any trustee to reach out to any of these consultants. I would appreciate being at least kept in the loop, and I'm happy to do that communication for you because I do work with them pretty regularly.
In terms of training, David got me thinking of something. One thing we did as we were looking at the whole IMLS situation and trying to quantify a little bit more of what we do, Michael. So this may get at sort of things we do a lot of training, and so we tried to come up with a way to quantify at least a segment of the online training that we offer, and how much value that brings to library staff around the state public libraries. And so we based assuming that a webinar training for somebody costs about $50 to take if you're doing a paid one, which is probably low, depending on who you're getting it from. We provided in fiscal 25 about, I think, $2.2 million worth of training based on the number of classes that library staff in the state took. So, it's a significant amount of training money that we save public libraries by offering free training. So that's just one of the ways we try and quantify what we do. So does that get at what you were asking?
That's all good.
Yeah, and then the chief just sort of is the liaison up to administration and back down to us.
Thank you.
And the chief moving forward is going to report directly to the state librarian now, which is a change.
Yeah, exactly. And for the first time, as far as I'm aware, in the Library of Virginia strategic plan, public libraries are mentioned specifically as one of the 4 operational pillars that the strategic plan says something like, one of the roles of the Library of Virginia is to ensure that Virginia has the most excellent public library system. So we were gratified to see that codified in a strategic plan because it sort of reinforced the work that we do within the Library of Virginia. But it also means the money needs to be there to do it right. So it's easier to make that argument if you're in the strategic.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you all. And if you have any questions, obviously, David can find me.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Oh, you know what? I didn't stop sharing. I'm sorry. I hid the toolbar.
That also worked. Let me just take a second to see if all is Siri.
Yes.
So we see an attendee, a participant named All there. Is this trustee Siri Russell? Siri, or All rather, you can unmute if you want to answer. Otherwise, if it is Siri, you can send me a message and we will read a motion to join you into the meeting. Okay.
All right.
No.
We have no appointments or report to cover, so we're gonna move on to old business, the second reading for removal of JMRL policy 4.61. I'll give that to Mike.
Okay, so we discussed this last month at first reading. And basically, this policy talks about, I think Dave's probably pulling it up, our offering of the Monticello Avenue Community Information Network. Since this is a policy, currently staff is required to offer this service. And we, as a committee, discussed and feel like the need for the service is a lot less because this technology have created many other options for people who are interested. And just as a recap, staff is in the process of reaching out to our current users to help them work through transition options. So the committee's recommendation is to remove this policy, which would no longer require staff to offer this service, which would enable them to continue to implement a transition where they're helping offboard our current users to other services.
Is there any emotion or discussion on this?
I move that we remove policy 4.61, the Monticello Avenue Community Information Network, from our JMRL policy manual.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving along to new business. Discussion, potential motion, and vote for the removal of JMRL fines for most overdue materials beginning July 1st, 2026. And I will, open the floor for discussion.
I did provide the board with two potential motions in the handouts there that share.
And I had asked David to do that, just he wasn't jumping forward to do it. I asked him just to give us a starting point, so there would be some actual language.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between these two?
So the first one just says, move to authorize staff to cease collecting late fines for most overdue materials beginning July 1. The second one more specifically says that those most overdue materials would be defined in policy 4.225, which is the circulation fines and fees schedule that annually the board reviews. This came out of a discussion I had with some board members about, specifically we were talking about ILL fines, the fact that there are some late fines that maybe JMRL would consider still charging. If we borrow a book from an outside institution and lend it to a patron of ours that then brings it back late, JMRL is responsible for the fees to that outside institution. So it would allow for the ILL fees. The other example that would potentially be talked about is the bestseller collection at each branch, where there's a lucky day collection of 1 week books that go out that don't take holds. So if there's a brand new Oprah book and everybody wants to read it, if you're lucky enough to get it there, you can have it for a week, and there'd be some consideration outside of this motion whether or not to continue to charge fines for those.
That would all, what you just said would be outlined in section 4.
Yeah, and let me share so that people watching can see what we're saying. I brought that up just because this has not been reviewed. It used to be an annual review. And since the board has been talking about this for quite a while now, there has not been a review of this schedule. Normally, annually, the board would go through and say, what are we charging for this? Do we want to charge more or less for that? So it would be most of this top section disappearing, but anything that the board wanted to carve out, such as the ILL fines, could be specified there.
In some sense, we don't even need those. You would just change this and vote on it in some way, but in that case, it wouldn't necessarily be a permanent type of approach. Because this gets reviewed later. Yeah, you get reviewed every year. I mean, of course, you can make
Which
sure
we could also do, yeah.
So,
Covering ourselves by saying most, right?
Yeah.
Most is a fine. But the issue really would be that if we are wanting to get rid of them, we need to go ahead and make that
Well, I think,
decision quickly so that you guys have time.
Yep.
To figure it out.
and also there's a PR component to this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the public need, I think the motion, we should have a motion here, and the public should know
Yeah.
that what our intent is. Just detail that. word.
Yeah.
But I would be in favor of the second one, just for that clarification.
All in favor of these?
He has to move it. Peter, I know you want to do it. Come
I'll
on.
do it.
All right, now we can vote.
Well, yes. Say what you're doing.
I move that JMRL cease collecting late fines for most overdue materials beginning July 1, 2026, with any exceptions outlined in JMRL policy section 4.225, circulation fines and fees.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion moves. Because now we.
Or two. Back on to Michael's list.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't usually run that through the committee, actually,
That's correct.
but you could certainly I would think we would want to have that as a new business next month.
Yeah, I mean, right, at some point between now and next,
Oh, that's right. That's
July.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
We're not.
not necessarily next month,
Yeah.
like maybe there might be other budgetary things that take precedence, but.
No, I wasn't keeping the time frame in mind, so.
Moving on to budget priorities for fiscal year 27.
So if I may, I did share in the handout some potentials here, which look very similar to this year's with the, make this go.
Click on the three dots on the right. Say hi, floating meeting controls. I knew we got you here. for a reason.
There we go.
It's like consulting work.
He'll be billed.
I love it.
It's also training.
Eric, take the rest of the day off.
As Jerry and I already started working on a draft budget for the board's budget committee to consider to come in front of the full board, started talking about things. And we're looking for the board to provide some guidance on what the priorities are, which we do annually. This is in the annual calendar of events that at this September meeting, the board provides some direction to staff. So the secure funding to continue positive progression on JMRL's pay scale is kind of a holdover from the top priority last year, but it's more of a positive, like we did a good step this past fiscal year for library staff and raising the pay scale by 5%. So to continue that. The second one is new. It's the secure funding from Albemarle and Charlottesville for the A&E phase of the central library renovation project. This is a little unusual because usually these budgetary priorities are not about capital projects. They're all about operational costs. But we know that there is a deadline here that both Charlottesville and Albemarle have anticipated that in fiscal year 27, they will pay for an architecture and engineering project. So it's just on this board to be on me to make sure that that is in place. And they're going to have to vote on those things. Obviously, that's not under the board's control, but it would be more in the sense of we're going to be talking to the elected officials and talking to staff about the need for this. And then the third one is also based on a very recent vote that the board made to remove fines and fees. There's secure funding for fiscal year 27 equipment needs. So last month, staff laid out for you some options for funding the equipment fund in fiscal year 27, 28, 29. So we'll just need to make sure that plan is in place, the funding is there for the equipment needs next year. And the final one is to continue the current levels of library service. So all of these are, suggestions for the board, but it's open to discussion. Additional ideas.
Is this where we also put in, continuing to work on staff salaries?
That's number one.
Yeah, I think it's the top one.
Oh, duh.
I'm glad to know that that's in your mind, though.
So there's no other overall initiatives that are new this year, other than.
No, the
except
closest,
for one.
the closest one that I think will come up before the personnel committee, which is meeting in a few minutes, and then
Next week.
potentially
Next week.
next week, thank you, And then potentially come in front of the budget committee is a proposal to extend bookmobile services to Greene County, which would be the last of the 5 jurisdictions to receive bookmobile service. That is strictly, I don't want to use the phrase a la carte, but that is up to Greene County whether or not to fund that, as it was for Nelson and Louisa 2 years ago. So I didn't consider that to be a board level, like, we're gonna make this happen. That has to happen between Martha and I talking to Greene County.
Mention too that there is the budget committee is meeting at the end of October in preparation for the November.
That'll be after the October
October
board
30th.
meeting.
After the October board meeting before the November.
It's a busy time of
You have
year.
to keep those dates straight.
And the November board meeting is early, so.
Yes, for Thanksgiving.
And the November board meeting is also on the road. On Thursday. I'll send you plenty of reminders
At
about
least
it.
it's not green yet.
Well, I feel like we normally have 3 budget priorities, and so I think, thank you for explaining why the second one is kind of maybe not but is sort of, but.
I think it's a chance for the board to agree, if they do, that this is a priority for staff moving forward. This is more marching orders for me than.
I do generally agree with these priorities. I don't know if we're voting on anything, but.
Yeah, I was about to
Just
make
in
a
terms of
motion.
general consensus.
I'm about to make a motion that the board adopt these 4 priorities as budget priorities for fiscal year 27.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the library director's report.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, the Friends of the Library's annual fall book sale is coming up beginning on Saturday, October 4th through Sunday, October 12th, 10 to 7 every day. There is a members night the night before, so I'm sure you're all up to date on your Friends of the Library membership dues. You're free to come on Friday night, October 3rd from 5 to 7. So it's at the home of the old Northside Library at 300 Albemarle Square. Go and support the Friends. Let me know if you want to volunteer. I'll put you in touch with Peter Manno, the book sale manager. They're always looking for bodies, and the volume of material they have is really good this year. Everything's looking on track for another stellar book sale. I want to mention that the Paramount Theater on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall is going to show a documentary film called The Librarians on Wednesday, October 8th. And they've asked me to speak after the screening in conversation with Lisa Varga, who's the former director of the Virginia Library Association, current director of American Library Association's Public Policy and Advocacy Office. That's a good opportunity to talk about library service. It is time for the annual pre-budget meeting with the executive officers of Charlottesville, Albemarle, Green, Louisa, and Nelson. So we're looking at scheduling that for the week of 10/6. This is the meeting that's annually referred to by staff lovingly as the Heads of the 5 Families meeting. I'll report back to the board on this as we start next month. There'll probably be a budget report in every agenda until the end of time, until next year. If you've been by Gordon Avenue recently, you might have noticed that there was a major emergency repair project in the front yard there. The area that is a little seated garden with a little gate in honor of Nancy Swigert there. There was a major sewage issue. It was the original sewage line going out to the city's hookup from 1966. It degraded, had to be replaced. So a portion of that front grass area had to be dug up. Special thanks to the city of Charlottesville for identifying the issue and fixing it very quickly. But there's going to be some landscaping work to beautify that. To grow back.
Was the magnolia saved?
There was no tree there. They had to take a bush out.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it's in that area down towards the sloping area. It was like
Yeah.
right in front of the library there. A reminder that JMRL will be closed to the public on October 13th for all staff training day. So again, let me know if you'd like to attend. If you didn't fill out the survey that went around, we can get a lunch for you. I will send the agenda out to everybody. As I mentioned, Barry Trott will be here in the afternoon presenting 2 sessions, same session, about AI for staff.
Time does that?
The day or that particular session?
What time does the entire thing start on the 13th?
I believe it's 9, but it might be 9:30. I'm going to send an agenda out once it's done to the entire board.
Last year was 9.
Yeah, there's usually like food in the morning.
So my calendar says 9 o'clock.
Okay. 9 o'clock. Randy is keeping me on target. Yes. And it's at the Hillsdale Conference Center in Charlottesville. Two quick things. Local author Bruce Holsinger will be speaking at the Central Library on Sunday, September 28th from 2 to 3:30 about his latest novel, Culpability. Especially noteworthy because this title was just named Oprah's Book Club choice this summer. So he's a professor at the university. The novel, I read it recently. It does deal with AI in a little bit and how it impacts one particular family. The event is free and open to the public, and we're expecting a good crowd. And speaking of famous authors, the Crozet Library is hosting an after-hours event with best-selling author Jan Karon on 10/10. That event's already full, though, with a waiting list. But thanks to both authors. 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon.
And do you have to sign up?
No, that one you can just show up. The Jan Karen one is registration only, and that one's full. I just mentioned it to brag. So thanks to both authors for giving their time to share with the readers in the JMRL community. And that's all I have to report.
Other matters?
Can I just, on this, this motion that we just passed that we're eliminating fines?
Yes.
Is there going to be a PR piece on that? I mean, I think that's a big deal for the
Yeah,
community.
it's not happening until next July.
I understand that, but
So,
just that
certainly.
it's a priority for the library, that, it's a priority for the board, why we're doing it. all that
Yes,
kind
certainly. So a lot of the information that the working group gathered, the data metrics that we identified and are now collecting on a regular basis, we'll kind of package that together to start explaining. At this point, we're explaining why the board made a decision.
And that
Decision is
we made the decision.
Yeah, decision is made.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that would happen until we get a little bit closer to it.
Right, no, I get that.
It's not happening
I
tomorrow.
do think it's a worth thing.
Yeah.
Public.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, Ann, what time frame would you, given the 20 July implementation, what time frame do you have in mind, just to make sure?
Well, certainly in 26.
Yeah.
In spring of 20.
You're not thinking about, hey, we should make a little announcement that this vote just happened.
No.
Yeah. Although I think it's,
I think Meredith's right. You don't want to confuse you.
yeah, okay. All right,
mean-
yeah,
It might be, but it would have to be pretty.
Is that something we want to take to our board of supervisors?
Yeah, I think it'll
Because it's going
come
to
up.
change our funding in terms of, we use those monies to do materials. And it would be a sort of look at how we're relating to our communities from the board of supervisors.
I think
Sure. I was gonna say, this is a public meeting, word will get out. I see we have a member of the press, recording this meeting, so, the word's going to get out in general about this.
I think, Martha, the meetings that we have, the budget meetings that we have with each jurisdiction will be an opportunity to talk about it. And we also want to kind of assuage concerns that we're going to be pushing on cost to jurisdictions, because the plan that Jerry and I presented last month did not include asking for additional funding for jurisdictions in order to pay for this. So we can talk about, what that might look like in 5-10 years, but for the next 3 years, at least, we're not asking for more money to help pay for
Offset it,
something
yeah.
that the board already decided on.
I would imagine that this will spread around the staff pretty quickly, right? So. Staff will-
Yeah, maybe we should announce, make our, be up before, the press does, that we put out a press.
If the board's directing me to do that, I would think that if we're saying now we're gonna do something in 9 months, we're gonna lead the board. Just for our average users,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
for the kind of like the information sphere around.
Policy people.
Right.
The community.
Right, but for the people coming in and checking books
Yeah,
and
yeah,
materials out, they're
okay.
still
I'll
getting
leave-
used to the
I'll leave
automatic
that up to you.
renewal.
Right.
It's a great conversation, right, to have with jurisdictions, because I think it's an added value that we're bringing to the community by saying, look, we're hopefully even more people are gonna want to use our library now, because if they had any concerns that they're going to be eliminated, so as a public service.
It does seem like it would be good for you to be prepared for, for questions, whether it's from the media or from
Yeah, absolutely.
jurisdictions, just some sort of FAQ or something that could kind of address any concerns, right? Because it is a big decision and it is something that people could easily misconstrue or, you know.
Yeah, we have a lot of data and talking points that has been developed for this board over the last year or so. So that's what we have in our back pocket.
So the one thing I'll throw in, when the PR campaign rolls out in a number of months, I would encourage you, I believe that there are gonna be some current users who are gonna be apprehensive about whether, not just from a funding standpoint, which is a jurisdictional thing, but is this gonna impact my experience with the library and hold times and whatever the level of service. And I say that because I've seen at least one of those from the public. So I would hope that that doesn't have to be the top thing in the campaign, but I hope our campaign kind of covers the things we've done to mitigate those concerns. And we're not just cheerleading that, hey, we did a great thing, but also making sure everyone understands the prudence that we put into it and why we feel confident that we're gonna be able to maintain everyone's level of service.
I think an FAQ is a good way, kind of anticipate those types of questions and then, all the things that this board has thought about and talked about and the working group thought about and talked about. Kind of getting out
Other
front.
jurisdictions.
Yeah, and
have come as for-
other success stories and then other concerns. So. Great. Good feedback.
Anything else? Moving on to future agenda items, which I will start by saying a personnel meeting update will be a part of that. Policy meets before next month.
There'll be a budget update as well. I think those are the only two committee meetings currently scheduled.
Yes, that I'm aware of.
Policy committee, Brandy said policy. Not budget is a few
Budget is
days after
The week after.
On Halloween.
No, not
Day
quite. Can't do it Halloween. I got things to do.
April Fool's.
Glad, Tony, you mentioned that a reminder to the board, an early reminder that the November meeting is a week early. And then I believe the December meeting is a week early too.
What does
What's next week? Cause I'm glad I got your email.
For the December meeting.
He's like, see you Monday, and I was like, oh, 5 minutes.
Motion to adjourn. If there's nothing else.
It's in favor.
Thank you, Brandy. Good job.
Hey, big day, you did awesome.
Thanks. Come back in 10 months when I actually take the seat.